So I'm about a couple months in, and really just focusing on logic games right now. And so right now I'm like I mean I've done pretty good on accuracy for ordering games, and right now I've like moved to splitting, grouping splitting, and I'm doing pretty good on that as well. So those are like, I guess, more like vertical diagrams, because for ordering I was doing more horizontal, like dashes,
Yeah,
for
so for the in, out, and splitting, for any specific scenario, you typically do want to create some kind of T chart to represent what's in and what's out, or what's in group one versus group two.
Right, exactly. So I'm feeling pretty good on those as well, because usually it's about like two groups, and you just I mean, just list the variables for each group. So splitting is pretty easy, but I haven't moved on to in and out yet. I'm just like doing drilling for splitting just to get like really good on accuracy. So what, I guess, what would you recommend? Because I'm going for the Jan LSAT now, January and February. So I guess, because I'm following your course, and right now, like I said, I'm doing logic games. So what would you recommend? Like, how fast should I approach splitting, and what should I focus on when I move on to that? Because I know uh are not splitting in and out. Because I know splitting was is much easier than in and out grouping. So what would you recommend for in and out?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I wouldn't say that splitting is necessarily easier
Okay.
than in and out. I think they're probably roughly equivalent, or if anything, splitting might be a little bit more difficult on average. At this
Oh,
point, you were speaking now, end of September. You've got January, February LSATs, 3, 4 months away. You got plenty of time here. So I'd really suggest at this point that you focus on building a solid foundation in each section, each question type. You don't need to be at 100% accuracy before moving on to the next game type in this case. I would think get yourself to a reasonable level of comfort where you can often get things correct, maybe 70% accuracy or 60% accuracy, because you will still continue practicing these games as you do individual sections and full length exams later.
okay, cool.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
yeah, and then so I guess I move on to in and out pretty soon, and then, like I said, do the matching. Those are the two leftover for logic games. So when do you recommend kind of moving on from logic games and going on to logic reason, and starting on that and working on fundamentals and everything for
Yeah,
that
sure.
game?
So as long as you've covered each of the game types and feel reasonably comfortable with them, so that could be 70% accuracy on each game type or 70% accuracy on a full section of games. And then you start off with LR. I'd start with LR probably the next week or so, just so
Okay,
that you can start getting exposed to that, because that has a lot to cover in terms of different question types.
got you. Okay. Cool. So once, I guess, because like I told you, I'm drilling by question type. So for logic games, once I kind of reasonably feel comfortable with each question type, do you recommend like taking untimed sections, or should I focus on like timed sections already?
I would focus more on timed sections.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because even without, I guess, doing in and out or splitting, I was able to like finish some of the sections of logic games just by
Nice.
doing, because I guess a lot of the questions are mostly like ordering and just like multi-level games.
That's great. That's great that you were doing well on them already. Yeah, I mean, there are some ordering games, some grouping games, some games that combine elements of both, and then some curveball games. So it'll vary from section to section, but it's good that you're doing pretty well on them already.
Cool. All right. And then so I mean, as far as you said, for to move on to logic reason, so how long do you recommend to stay on LR? Because I know it's a little bit more intense, I guess. Is it like much, I guess, more harder than logic games, or it kind of depends?
I typically tell students, and this is what I think, that logic games is the the hardest or most intimidating section at first for a lot of people, but it's also the most perfectible section because it's the most mathematical in a way. It's the most regular section in terms of there not being so much ambiguity of language like you have in logical reasoning. So LR can be a little bit tougher, but you can get there too. There are patterns there. Also, it just might be a little bit deeper under the surface. So it takes more time to unpack what are those patterns in those methods of reasoning. there are also more question types in LR. You have roughly 12 to 15 question types, depending on how you categorize them. And so, to your question about length of time devoted to it, I would spend at least a month focused primarily on LR while still cycling in logic games so that you don't get rusty on them.
Cool. And then yeah, as far as studying goes, I'm doing about like the minimum 10 hours and then 15 hours usually I go for during a week in a week. So like would you recommend kind of getting the studying a little bit, I guess more studying to like maybe like 25 hours a week or something, or do you think this is good?
Well, what else do you have going on? Are you working? Are you in school? Family obligations?
I mean, I'm definitely working. I guess I work more on the weekends, so I usually like do Monday through Friday, 3 hours a day, and that's why it gets up to like 15. And then I usually take the weekends off. So I don't know if you want me to like kind of maybe do a little bit on the weekends, even.
So you work a job, but you said you work that job more on the weekends.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So your weekdays, Monday to Friday, they're pretty open other than the 3 hours of LSAT prep.
Yeah, most of the time.
Okay. So you could increase that a bit. You could aim to do 4 hours some days or even 5 hours some days while including plenty of breaks. I'm saying that you could because I don't think it's urgent that you do this considering you have the LSAT 3 to 4 months away. If
Right.
you were telling me the LSAT's a month away, I would definitely want you to do more than 3 hours, especially given that you still need to build the foundation in LR and reading comp, but you'll get there. You'll get there. You have plenty of time. So I think if there are some days where you still feel like you still have energy and you're not ready to throw your books at the wall or something, and you can do it. If you're feeling done for the day after 3 hours, you can close up for that day and then just get back to it the next day.
Definitely, yeah, because I usually do like one session of like 3 hours, and I'm just like after that, I'm like, I need to do something else. Maybe I need to go work out or something, and just kind of get away from this.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I guess like yeah, if I do like a 3 hour session, maybe like do another second session for like an hour or 2 hours,
Yeah.
whatever.
So instead of ending for the day after 3 hours when you're sick of it, you could just do the 3 hours, go work out, and then come back to it for a bit more. Because that the extra 30 to 60 minutes after the workout, if you add that up over the course of 5 days in a week, couple weeks, couple months, it really does become significant.
Right, right. Does add up. That's cool. Yeah, and I had a few notes written for a few questions that I was gonna ask you further. I mean, I think I asked most of them, but let's see. So, so you said a month on logic reason for the most part, and then after that, how much should I go for on reading comp? Again,
Well, see what you need. See what you need. You might need a little bit more than a month on logical reasoning or want a bit more, and that's totally fine. If you needed 5 or 6 weeks, that'd be okay. And then, or if you need just 4 weeks, that's fine too. Reading comp might take a little bit less time to get comfortable with because it's a little bit more natural. You've probably done some reading comp at some point already, whether in college or for SATs, ACTs, that sort of thing. LSAT is a bit different, but still it's similar enough that it won't seem as foreign as the games and reasoning sections do. So it could just be that you want a couple of weeks just to get familiar with how passages are structured and how the questions associated are structured. And then once you're done with that, then it's time to devote a month or two at least to full length timed exams.
got you. Yeah, because with reading comp, it's I guess much harder to like improve on it. I've heard to
It
like
can be a little bit harder to improve on it significantly, but you can improve on it just the same. So that I guess folk wisdom about it isn't necessarily destiny. You can, it's not an excuse to not even try on reading comp. There is a lot that can be done. It's just a little bit tougher to make those gains, but you can make them. There are strategies for doing it. And inside the course, I have plenty of full length reading comp classes and deep dive sessions where we'll spend an entire hour just analyzing one passage, not even doing the questions, just the passage. So there's a lot to unpack, but it takes more work.
right, right. It's cool. So I mean, like I told you about the weekends, I usually take them off like 2 days. So would you recommend doing something just so I kind of remain in that mode, or is it okay to take 2 days off if I kind of go hard on the weekdays, Monday through Friday?
It's okay to take 2 days off. That's totally fine. Again, we're not at the last minute here. And even if you were, at a certain point, either you know it or you don't as test date gets closer. But for now, I'd say if you want to take off the 2 days entirely, that's okay. Some people like to do a little something every single day to keep the momentum going. So if you wanted to just do one logic game on Saturday morning or one logic game Sunday morning, or when you get into LR, a couple LR questions, just for your own comfort to know that you're not getting rusty or that you're not going to have a hard time on Monday getting back to it, then do a couple questions just to stay in the game.
Cool, but and as far as like whenever your test date is getting closer, then of course get the studying a little bit more frequent, like maybe like a month before.
I would
Do
ramp it up. I would typically ramp it up because you tend to typically folks tend to get stressed if they're not doing a whole lot in that final month. And you want to make sure your endurance and your understanding is at peak performance. You don't want to be feeling rusty or that this is kind of something on the side, given its importance. So I would shift focus as testing gets closer to, if you can, make it one of the biggest things you have going on at the moment. So other stuff typically might go on the back burner if you can put it on the back burner in that final month or two. Also, you want to be doing tons of full-length practice tests in the lead up to test day so that test day itself feels ideally like just another run through.
Cool. Yeah. Sounds good. And then as far as I guess the other application requirements go, I mean, I already have the 2 letter of recs, and I guess two is should be good enough, right? Most law schools require just 2.
Yeah.
And then,
So two's the minimum. It's sufficient. If you can get a 3rd letter, it doesn't hurt. It's also not necessary though.
cool. And then as far as a couple of the personal statement and the diversity, do you recommend like kind of just putting that off until like maybe I take the February LSAT, and then you have those 2 weeks where your scores are going to be back, and then finishing off the other parts of the application?
I probably wouldn't wait until February to start working on those because the best writing happens over a longer period of time. So you write something, you put it away for a bit, you come back with a fresh perspective on it. Maybe you'll be a little bit less emotionally attached to what you wrote previously, meaning that you can look at your earlier drafts with a more critical eye, with some distance. If you write something in the last minute, it can be hard to be willing to throw away a good chunk of it and replace it with something better. So I do recommend going through draft after draft over a longer period of time if you can. Of course, LSAT is more important than the application essays. So I wouldn't devote a ton of work to the application essays right now if it meant doing less for LSAT. But on the side, you could certainly do a bit of work on the essays. Maybe if you spent 3 hours on the LSAT and you want to take a break, go work out, come back, then do a little bit of work on the essays. Maybe you write a rough draft of one of them or add another paragraph or decide some other details to include. Have you gotten started with them at all yet?
No, not yet.
That's okay. That's okay. You got plenty of time. I would recommend for each essay, meaning especially ones where you can choose a topic like personal statement, diversity statement, I would maybe, if you're considering a few different topics, write a couple hundred words on each, even if you're not going to use all of them, and then see which one flows most naturally or will work best as a topic. Because sometimes you have an idea of a topic, but then when it comes to actually writing it, there's not a whole lot of juice in it. But then you got to choose something else instead. I also actually include application essay editing as a service. So I can help you. We have an unlimited edits program where we will give you unlimited edits for all your application essays. We also have a jumpstart program where we help you even if you have no rough draft at all. So starting from zero, helping you craft your essays. So when you're ready for that, reach out and we can talk more about it.
For sure. Yeah, so I mean, I guess maybe I can start those personal statement and diversity statement, maybe like on the weekends, just kind of write a little bit, maybe when I take the LSAT off.
Yeah.
And over time, I guess that will kind of add up.
Definitely.
And I don't have to worry about doing it like last minute. And then as far as the personal statement topic, I mean, I've had like a significant weight loss in the past. So it doesn't have to correlate, I guess, with law, or can it just be like overcoming some like a challenge in life?
That could be a great topic. Yeah, it does not have to be about law specifically. After all, you're not a lawyer yet. You haven't been to law school yet. So any topic at all is perfectly fine. It's all about how you do it. And so something like overcome, dealing with weight loss and making, that's requires a lot of discipline, self-control, and being willing to be in something for the long haul, right? Doesn't happen overnight. Requires sustained dedication, focus, habit formation. And law school is also grueling in a different way, but still it requires sustained dedication over the course of those 3 years. It's not easy. And so I think if you can either, it doesn't have to be explicitly, but even implicitly, those themes will be obvious across both.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess because in law school, they're just trying to see how well you can overcome and kind of persevere, when things
Exactly.
get difficult. Cool. And then whenever I'm doing logic games right now, what I do is I write it down. So I read the question and I write down, I guess, like the key points of the questions on a piece of paper. And then I'm writing down, like I'm diagramming, and then I basically answer the questions on the paper. So do you think that's a good approach? Because I guess doing it all digitally, and kind of doing it all in my head, or maybe doing less on paper, maybe doesn't get me that accuracy. So I'm more comfortable just writing it down. But I guess when you go to timed conditions, that might take a longer time and it might work at a disadvantage.
Oh, you
So,
should definitely make diagrams and use your scratch paper for logic games. It's too much to do in your head. There are very, very few people who are capable of doing it in their head. I couldn't do it in my head. I write down the rules. I make diagrams. It ends up saving you time in the long run relative to trying to do it all in your head. Plus, consider that the diagrams that you draw can be useful later for other questions in that very same game. So that's just one area where it saves you time.
right. That's cool. Let's see. And then I guess just getting faster at games. I mean, like I said, I haven't taken any timed exams, but it's just doing it repetitively that would eventually get you faster because you're able to identify the question type.
As you
And
do more games, you will see the patterns better. Yeah.
cool. All right. And I think that should be all. And then the other things for the application, like CAS and everything, that's just you just have to get that like 6 to 8 weeks before your exam date, something like that. And then
Well, the CAS, that's not about the LSAT. That's more the Credential Assembly Service that
oh,
relates to other parts of your application. And you could just do that directly on LSAC's site.
that's like side. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to check in the progress and just see if I can get some tips or not. And then yeah, I'll probably schedule another coaching call with you maybe in the next few months.
Yeah, for
Once
sure.
I'm making
Definitely.
once I'm making improvements or have any big questions. But I've noticed that what I usually do is I usually go through your foundational, and like I try to take notes on the new topics that you discuss for each section. Or right now it's just logic games, and then I usually go to like mastermind is good too. I've actually went through your mastermind in the last week or so, and just listening to other students give advice on, I guess, each question type and how to improve. And I guess that gives you more strategies on how to combat different question types. So that's pretty helpful. So do you recommend just staying with that, just like doing the foundational, and then kind of I mean, of course, following the study plan, and then just doing a little bit of mastermind, kind of going deeper into the questions to
Yeah,
understand it?
that's a good approach. Also, make sure you're checking out the workshops section of the course with the full length class recordings, and also join the live classes if you can as well. That'll
Def-
give you access to that community of students. You'll hear more from others going through the same thing as you are, as well as the opportunity to ask your questions live in class.
Right, cool. Yeah, I haven't been able to really, I guess, attend any other classes because I mean, usually I have a schedule, but I try to get in about 3 hours. And whenever I do the 3 hours of study, I just focus on the foundational and just doing self-paced. But I've seen some of the recordings; they're definitely helpful with all the students, giving their input and everything.
Awesome. Yeah, and
So
if you have any questions or requests, just shoot me an email, and we can add those to the agenda for upcoming classes too.
sure, alrighty. And then yeah, is there any way I can get this recording as well so I can see the questions, the answers that you've given me, and maybe like be able to know that what you gave me, because I probably forgot a few of them
Yeah,
already.
totally. I'll make sure to send it over.
Send it over to my email. Okay, cool. Alrighty, Steve. Well, that should be all for today.
All right. Well, it was great to meet you, Rafi. Keep in touch. Let me know if you need anything going forward.
For sure. All right, Steve.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.